Hi, so today we're going to look at a new modelling technique, well, new perhaps to you, called box modelling. So before we begin, I just want to double check that everybody's using the same unit scale. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Customize menu, go to Unit Setup, and System Setup should say 1 unit equals 1 centimetre. Say OK to that, and then the display setup should also say be set to centimeters. Okay, just say OK to that, and going to go over to the Create panel, and I'm going to make a straightforward box. So as we've already looked at this method for working with standard primitives, you can just click and drag, and basically click, drag, and scale your box as you see fit. And we've still got at this point the opportunity to go into the parameters and decide that what parameters exactly we're going to use. So I'm going to say 50 by 50 by 2 for the height, and I'm also going to make sure it's exactly at the origin of the world space. So I'm going to click on the Select and Move tool. I'm going to right click on that Select and Move tool, and I'm going to change the spinners to, the X, Y, and Z coordinates by clicking on these spinners, and I'm going to basically right click on them once to set them to 0. The alternative was I could have gone down here to the coordinate type in and done the same. Okay, just want you to know there are a couple of ways to position your object, and you can see that my object has I've got my viewport set up so that the top left is my top viewport, top right is my front, bottom left is my left, and then I've got my perspective viewport. Okay, so I'm just going to maximize my view of this perspective viewport, so Alt and W to maximize that view. Okay, so now that it's created, I want to modify it, so go over to the Modifier tab and select the object. Now the first thing I want to do is look at the color of this object. So currently it's got a kind of default display color of green. I'm going to give it straight off a material, and as we're using the Arnold render engine, I'm going to change this top left hand corner. I'm just going to call it monitor. Gives you a clue as to what we're going to make, and I'll change the type from physical material over to a standard Arnold material. So materials, Arnold, and I want a standard surface, so select standard surface from your material browser and just say OK. And you get a default grey. Well, actually it's a kind of whitish off colour, so I'm just going to change that slightly. I'm going to make it a little bit darker, like so, about there, and I'm going to take the specularity down so it's not so shiny, it's not bouncing the light back so much. I might even put the roughness up a little bit. Okay, in fact, put it up by 5, that'll do. Apply that to the object. Okay, now when I deselect the object, you'll see that the edges of the object are currently green, so I'm kind of seeing the wireframe. Remember that the F3 button sets your viewport completely to wireframe or shaded. F4 turns the wireframe on and off when you have a shaded view. Okay, now currently I've got a grey object and the wireframe is currently green, and it's green because if I click on the object and you look up here in the top right hand corner of the screen, you'll see that that colour is green. Now if I change that, and let's say I make it black, now the object has a black edge all the way around it. So basically, when I first created this object, I'll just go back to the modifier and show you this again. When I created the object, I didn't add any additional length, width or height segments. If I had, so I'll just change everything to 2, you'll see that every surface gets subdivided so that we have two segments for length, width and height. Now, in this case, what I really want, I think, is I've got 2 on my width, and for the height, I don't think I need any at this point in time. Do I need any height segments? No, I don't think so. So the only one I want is on the width. If you put it in the length, it's not so important. You'll see why in a moment. But anyway, 1, 2, 1 in terms of segmentation. Okay, so just be conscious of that at this point still we've got the parameters are still available because this is still a standard primitive that we're working with. But, and I'll make a little clone of this so you can see it. So I've just held the shift key and slid the object there. And I'm just going to make this a copy, not an instance or a reference. And I'll leave it as box2. Okay, so that's my box2 copy. I'll just leave over that over there, and I'll just call it standard prim box. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Just have a little look at it. So standard primitive box. This one, I'm going to call this one monitor. Okay. I'm just going to hit the Z key so everything gets nice and focused. And I will select it and then right click on it, and I'm going to convert it to an editable polygon, or editable poly as we call them. So this editable poly is going to give us, firstly when we convert it to editable poly, we'll lose the parameters that you see over here in the command panel, but we'll have new options available. Let me just show you. So, okay. Now that they look identical of course, but remember this one's a standard prim and it's still got its parameters available. Once converted, we have a new set of options, and these are really important and very powerful. Okay, so what happens here is that with this object, and I think I'm just going to, no, I'll leave it as grey. With this object, we've got 5 different sub-object levels. Now we spoke about this previously with splines, and splines are 3 sub-object levels. With editable polys you have 5, and there are 2 ways of accessing them. You can open up the little arrow there, vertex, edge, border, polygon and element, and we're going to go through each of these and hopefully make sense of those as we go along. Or you can access them here. Now when you activate one, like so, we're going to go to vertex, which you'll remember that you had vertex as well on the spline sub-object level. When you select a vertex, oh, missed that. Obviously you can move that vertex in space. Now you want to be careful it doesn't cross over into that other vertex space, because you kind of get this kind of weird black shape appearing, and obviously that's not what we're after. I'm just going to undo that, Control Z to put it back where it was. You'll want to remember whenever you're working at a sub-object level, whichever level it is, you'll want to remember the following. When you've finished working with that sub-object level, just click on it. And that basically puts you to the top of the polygon again. Okay, so the top level. Now, the sub-object levels can be controlled or accessed easiest by saying by your keyboard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll just click through the numbers. 1 takes me to vertex level. 2 takes me to edge. 3 to border. 4 to polygon, and 5 to element. Okay, so that's my preferred way of accessing them, because it's a lot quicker in the long run. You don't want to be hunting and pecking with your mouse all the time like a little chicken after seed scattered on the floor. It's very time consuming when you're working to be doing that, so it's a lot easier to use your keyboard. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 takes you through the sub-object levels of that polygon. Okay, now we're going to work at the edge level, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge. Now if I select that edge, you know what, I'm going to just double check this, come out of there for a sec. I want to select that, go to my edge level, I want to deselect everything except for that one. They're all currently active. Now, I'm just going to move that one edge on its own, and you can you see that as I move it down the side here, we're getting this kind of diagonal line where the vertex that was at the bottom is basically trying to connect to this vertex up here, and we're basically causing this additional kind of diagonal edge here. Now, we don't really want to do that. We want to try and keep our edges regular and parallel wherever possible. Later on you'll understand this has got something to do with what we call topographical or topological flow, and it's good practice. So actually what I really want to do is going to double click on that edge, and now I've actually selected all of it all the way around, and you'll see this time round when I slide it, I'm not getting that diagonal kind of slice, if you like, and that's much better for what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I've got an edge there and I've moved it, and I can move that edge anywhere I want. Okay, that's kind of nice. That makes the division of that shape a lot more easy and pliable. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now, there's another little thing that I want to look at. And just one sec. I'm just a little bit bothered here that whenever I select an edge like that, you can't see it because all the edges are currently red. I'm just going to change that. This may not be an issue for you, so just watch, and you don't have to follow this, but if it's an issue, you can do the same. I'm just going to go to the Customize menu. I'm going to go to User Interface, Colors, I'm going to go to Geometry, and down to Selection, and currently it's red. I'm just going to change that to yellow just so that I can distinguish between the edges when they're actually individually selected. So I'll just illustrate. So when I select that object, the edges are yellow because the whole object is currently selected, but actually when I go to the edge that I want to select, it's still turning red. Now that's better. That's more of it. That's easier to follow, I think, for you and me. So double click again, just to remind you, a double click will select the edge all the way around the object. I'm just orbiting around the object to show you that it's all the way selected. If I just single click on an edge, I'm only selecting that one edge on its own. Sometimes exactly what you want to do, but in this instance, not what I want to do. Okay, so I've got one edge, I've moved it to that position. That's fine. I'm going to make another edge, but I'm going to do it in a different way. So let me show you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to marquee drag around all of those edges just to show you that all currently selected. This is really important that they are. So once they're selected, right click, and I'm going to choose the connect option. And the connect option is going to give me an opportunity to decide how many connections I want spanning across from one edge to the other. So I can go in here and choose how many I want. So you can see that I can choose 2, I can look at their spacing, and I can look at their position. Okay, so for this, in this instance, I actually only need 1, so I'm just going to move that there, and I'm just going to choose the spacing about there and say OK by clicking that little tick. Okay. Now I've got a little subdivision of the poly, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so now let's go to another sub-object level. This time we're going to go to the polygon sub-object level, select that polygon, and just be careful that it's only that polygon that you got selected, which in this case it is. And I'm going to use the extrude function. There's 2 ways of doing it. So first of all, you may have to find it. It's underneath the Edit Polygon Rollout. I'm just going to collapse all these so that we're not looking at too many rollouts at once. So collapse those, and I'm going to sneeze 1 second. Okay, back in the room. Okay, so underneath the Edit Polygon Rollout, I'm going to choose Extrude. I can just click on it and drag it up like so. Or, second option, I can click on the little button beside it, Settings button, and I can decide on the height, like so. Just roll it around so you can see a little bit easier. I can decide on the height like so, I can decide now. We'll get to this a little bit later, but there's different ways of extruding the polygon. We've got group, local normal, and by polygon. I'll come to that a little bit later. Okay. For the time being, I think I'll go for an extrusion of about, I'll say 45, and hit OK. There we go. That's fine. Okay, good enough. Now then, I'm going to go back to my edge sub-object level, and this time round I'm going to select all those edges there. Make sure they're all selected. I'm going to use my connect function again. In we go. And this time I'm going to use 2, and I'm going to slide it up to about there. Doesn't need to be super precise, but that'll do. Looks good all the way around. That's nice. Let's say OK. Good. Now I'm going to select just these 2 edges, and just to show you they're the only 2 currently selected, I'm going to connect those as well, and you'll see that the connect this time, I'll just move it across. I can still move it a little bit later on. I want to widen it as well. The connect is running between the 2 edges I selected, and I'll say OK to that. And that looks about right as well. OK, looks good. I could shuffle them a little bit if I wanted, but they look pretty good to me. OK, now back to the polygon sub-object level. I'm going to select that polygon in the middle, and I'm going to extrude it. And I think I'll extrude it this time just manually, so extrude it like so, about there. And then I'm going to extrude it again, so I've kind of clicked and released, and I'm going to click and release one more time. Okay, nice. And now I'm going to use the scale, uniform scale tool, and I'm going to scale that object like so. Okay, and I might use it. I mean, this is entirely up to you. But okay, looks kind of alright. Looks good. So we've got a little connection. That's nice. Okay, I'll say yes to that. Okay, that's nice. Now, still at the polygon sub-object level, I'm going to select that polygon, and this time I'm going to use the I'm going to use the outline function. So I'm just going to click it, go in there, and just do a little tiny. Oh no, I'm not. That's the wrong function. It's the inset function. I do apologise. That's the one I want. And you can see that's what I'm after. I'm just trying to create a really fine little bezel there to the edge of the screen. Okay. And now what you can see is that I've got additional polygons created all the way around the edge. So I want to deselect and go into those little polys there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm just going to extrude those out as well. Just come slightly to the side view so I can see what's happening. And I want to make sure I'm going in the right direction. Looks good. Just a little bit of... That's fine. Good. Okay, good, good, good. Now, I mean, you can just play with this and do what the hell you like, but I'm going to now go to the sub-object vertex level, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, those front vertex, I'm going to marquee drag all the way around all 4 of them. They're not really where I want them to be. Maybe the stand doesn't need to be that kind of deep, so let's say maybe that's a bit more realistic. Looks good, yep. I'm also going to go to my left view, so, sorry, I'm going to go to my front view because that's the way it's been modelled. And this time round, I'm going to select, let's see, I will select all those vertex. So just marquee drag around them all in the front view. And I'm going to just do a little rotate, like so. Looks good to me. Okay. Looks nice. If I go back to my perspective view now, P on the keyboard, I've got a nice little kind of tilt to it. Okay, so actually, that's a 10-minute. Is that? Oh goodness gracious, that's not. Yeah, is that 10 minutes or 19 minutes? Bloody hell. 90 minutes, that's way too long. Okay, far too long. But anyway, I haven't dealt with the border and I haven't dealt with the element yet, but I will do those a little bit later. But for the time being, that's a very fast exercise in just creating something as simple as a monitor. And, you know, it's very basic and we can do lots of different things with it. But okay, that'll do for now. Okie dokie.